Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hearing from the Bhagavad-Gita as it is, Chapter 3, entitled Karma Yoga, text 25. Sakta kamanya vidvamso yatar kurvanti bharata kuryad vidvamstatak saktash chikesho lokasangraham. Sakta, being attached. Karmani, in prescribed duties. Avidvamsa, the ignorant. Yata, as much as. Kurvanti, they do. Bharata, O descendant of Bharata. Kuryat, must do. Vidvan, the learned. Tata, thus. Asakta, without attachment. Chikeshu, desiring to lead. Lokasangraham, the people in general. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. As the ignorant perform their duties without attachment to results, the learned may similarly act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path. Please. Duties with attachment. Did I? Okay, please repeat. As the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results, the learned may similarly act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path. Purport. A person in Krishna consciousness and a person not in Krishna consciousness are differentiated by different desires. A Krishna conscious person does not do anything which is not conducive to development of Krishna consciousness. He may even act exactly like the ignorant person who is too much attached to material activities. But one is engaged in such activities for the satisfaction of his sense gratification, whereas the other is engaged for the satisfaction of Krishna. Therefore, the Krishna conscious person is required to show the people how to act and how to engage the results of action for the purpose of Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Anmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Panchakalptribhishcha Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patna Padmabhya Vaishnavya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So there are two types of duties described here. One is by ignorant people with attachment to the results of their work, and the other is by learned people without attachment, the latter being necessary to set a good example for society. So the central point here is attachment and understanding that material attachments are detrimental to our progress in spiritual life. they are described as being like the anchors that keep us in the material world. Different kinds of attachments. One kind is attachment to the body and its various designations. Unlimited designations in which way we describe ourselves, designations of family arrangements, of occupation, of qualities, so many designations, different ways that we think of ourselves. So that's one attachment, and of course that also means attachment to bodily comfort. And attachment to bodily comfort goes ill with spiritual life. So then there's attachment to kith and kin, and to relatives, husband, wife, children, etc. And then there is attachment to land and all the possessions that we have in the material world, like all the furniture and electronic gadgetry, everything that we own, those attachments. And then there is attachment to science, material science. Irreligious people place their faith quite often in science. They think that material scientists will actually eventually solve all their problems of life. And then there are attachments to religiosity, but without proper understanding of Krishna. So all these attachments are there for materialistic people in one way or another. Some people have more attachments than others. Some people, their whole progress in life is to increase material attachments, always looking for varieties of sense gratification to satisfy the senses, because nothing in the material world can actually fully satisfy our senses, because material sense objects our attachments to them suffer from satiation. You can only look a girl in the eyes for so long before feeling stupid. You can only smell the new mown grass or a perfume for so long before it begins to make you feel ill. You can only eat a certain amount of ice cream or pizza before you feel sick. So in this way there's satiation, and that is escalated or made worse by the fact that senses can never be satisfied. Dushparena nalena cha, the senses burn like fire. Just like you have a fire, you put the fuel on it, doesn't matter how much fuel you put on it, the fire will keep burning. So the senses are like that. They have to be satisfied. So that's the problem. Now you have to become free. Devotees set the example by doing the same kind of work, like we have to maintain our bodies, we have to work in the material world, maybe doing the same kinds of activities, but without attachment. So what is the difference? One is attachment for personal satisfaction, for personal happiness, and the other is attachment for the satisfaction of Krishna. That is the difference between the attachments, being materially attached, and being without attachment. Without attachment, we work for Krishna. We have no interest in the results of our activities. They're all given to Krishna. Vishvam Purnam Sukhayate. For this reason, the devotee, wherever he goes, he feels happiness, because he knows the secret of how to dovetail everything in Krishna's service. Whereas the materialist, he goes everywhere to satisfy his senses, but can nowhere satisfy his senses. The devotees actually Are they interested in happiness? Are we interested in happiness or not? Devotees? Devotees are not looking for happiness, actually. This is, if we look at the prayers of Lord Chaitanya, Shikshashtaka, he prayed for, what was it he prayed for? My Lord, even if you trample me, that's right. Yes, if you trample me, or do not break my heart by not appearing before me, I'm still your unconditional servant, life after life. It doesn't matter what you can treat me in whatever way you like. I will be your unconditional servant, life after life. And also King Parikshit, he prayed to all the great sages that had come from all around the universe to hear Sukadev Goswami. He prayed that if he was to be born again in the material world, that he would be born with attachment to the unlimited Supreme Lord, association with devotees, and friendship with all living entities. That was his prayer. So devotees are not looking for happiness. Some may be, but those devotees are fruitive devotees who want to enjoy Krishna. Their idea is not to actually please Krishna, but to enjoy Krishna. There are that's a fruitive kind of devotee. But Lord Chaitanya's movement is Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti-yogam. It is Vairagya and Vidya, that is renunciation and knowledge. That is Lord Chaitanya's movement. And he came to teach that we become detached from all material things, and we acquire knowledge. And in that sense, he sent out his associates. He sent out Jiva Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami. He sent out his preachers to give knowledge, and he sent out Raghunath Das to practice the principles of renunciation. Of course, Raghunath Das his renunciation was, no one can possibly imitate his renunciation. For 22 hours a day, he chanted and thought of Krishna. 1.5 hours a day, he ate and slept. And sometimes he didn't even do that. So that was Lord Chaitanya's mission, because if we don't begin to control our senses, we cannot acquire knowledge. And without knowledge, we cannot have detachment. You can try to be detached and renounced, like some materialistic people do try, like the hippies tried to become renounced, right? But Sanyasastu Mahabaho, Dukam Aptama Yogata, that if a person may become renounced, but if he doesn't engage in devotional activities, he doesn't Dukam Aptama Yogata, he achieves miseries. He doesn't achieve any happiness. Like so many hippies, they try to go to the countryside to engage in basket weaving and different things, but they were not happy. They didn't engage in devotional service. And that was in the 60s, and yes, mainly in the 60s. By the 70s and 80s, they were yuppies. The most intelligent were yuppies. They became yuppies, upwardly mobile in material world with good jobs. So yes, there are 4 kinds of living entities that take to devotional service, and there is the inquisitive, one in distress, one in need of economic sustenance, and the other one is the person in knowledge. So Krishna says the person in knowledge is most dear because, for what reason? He demands nothing from the Lord. He has no desires. He has knowledge that Krishna is Vasudeva Sarvamiti. He knows that Krishna is the cause of all causes. So therefore, he has no demands to make upon Krishna. So renunciation and knowledge must be there in devotional life, but without the attachment. So renunciation alone won't work. One has to be engaged in devotional service. And then there is the possibility of a person who is attached to Krishna. Well, a person who is attached to material world has no shelter, has no protection. It is described as durashraya. The conditioned soul thinks that dehapacha kaladrishu, that members of his family will protect him, or the government, or some arrangement of society, friendship and love will protect him. But he's actually danger every moment, danger every step. Padam padam yadvyupadam natesham. Any moment death can come. But the devotee is protected by Krishna. That is an article of faith, that only Krishna will protect the devotee. And that was shown very clearly by Prahlad Maharaj, who was born of a demoniac father, but was actually a devotee. Now Hiranyakashipu sent Prahlad Maharaj for a materialistic education in what are the three of the principles of material life: dharma, artha and karma. Economic development, religiosity and sense gratification. He sent Prahlad to be educated by Sanda and Amarka, who were the sons of Sukracharya, and they lived next door to Hiranyakashipu. So they started to educate Prahlad, and after some time Hiranyakashipu sat Prahlad on his lap and asked him what he'd been learning at school, and he replied more or less that you have to surrender to Krishna. So it wasn't exactly what his father wanted to hear. So he sent him back. He complained to the teachers that they weren't protecting him from, there were some undue influences from devotees. So then they tried again, and Prahlad went back, and this happened a few times, and eventually his father sat him on his lap and wept profusely, wetting Prahlad's face with his tears. Great affection. Asked him what he had learned, and then he told him 9 principles of devotional service. That was too much for his father. So one moment he was showering with affection, the next moment he was throwing him on the ground, saying that it was not tolerable and that he should be killed under all circumstances. He should be killed. So that is the nature of the demon. The demon thinks he's perfect, right? Ishvaraham Ham Bhogi. I am the Lord, I am the supreme enjoyer. Siddhoham Balavan Sukhi. Siddhoham, I am perfect, powerful and happy. That is the consciousness of the demon. I am perfect, powerful and happy, I'm the Lord. But you can understand that he's a little off course, that he's a little deluded. And that's of course ajnana projita. He is deluded by mainly money, wealth, and false prestige. Under that condition, Chintama Parimam Cha, Pralayantam Upashrita, Kamopaboga Parama. The demon thinks that sense gratification, the happiness from sense gratification, is the ultimate goal of life. But Chintama Parimam Cha means that to the end of his life, he's filled with immeasurable fears and anxieties. Compare this with the devotee. Wherever he goes, Purnams Vishram Purnam Sukhayate, wherever the devotee goes, he's happy. He's experiencing happiness. So that's the demoniac life. So Hiranyakashipu, he tried to kill his son, first of all with the Rakshasas, who had red hair and red coppery eyes and fearsome faces, and they were carrying tridents and spears, and they tried to kill him with tridents and spears, shouting, "Cut him up, slay him, cut him up," but they couldn't kill him that way. Then they tried so many other ways to kill him, practically everything you could think of. They tried to poison him. They tried to starve him. They subjected him to heat and cold and wind. They threw rocks at him. They threw him off a mountain. They put him under the feet of elephants, but they couldn't kill him. So Hiranyakashipu became very disturbed that he wasn't able to do that. So Sandanamaka, they went to him, and they were very disturbed, and they told him, "Well, he's just a young boy, he'll grow out of it. You just give him back to us, and we'll keep teaching him." And so they did that. They tried again, and then again Hiranyakashipu asked him, "What have you learned?" And he said, "Surrender to a spiritual master." So at that point, at that point, Hiranyakashipu decided he was going to kill him himself with his sword, cut off his head. So you say Krishna is protecting you under all circumstances. Where is your God? Is he in this pillar? And of course then we know what happened. There was a crash so loud that the demigods in heaven heard it, and they all thought their planets were going to be destroyed. And out came Lord Nrsingadev, and they had a bit of a tussle, but in the end Lord Nrsingadev took Hiranyakashipu on his lap and ripped him to pieces, and then licking the blood in his lips, he took his intestines and put them round his own neck. So that was the end of Hiranyakashipu, and that's the end of all demoniac people, that eventually they must meet death. And then Prahlad offered prayers, and he said, Balasya Neha Saranam Pitarao Nishrima, that he described a situation that even though you may have parents, sometimes they cannot protect you. Even if you have the protection of parents, they may not be able to save you. Whereas also gave other examples, like a boat maybe in a boat in the ocean, it might not be able to save you from drowning. There are different examples like that. Or a child in the forest may survive, but a child given all protection by its parents may die. So there's no guarantee that you can give protection to anybody. If it doesn't have the sanction of the Supreme Lord, then no one can protect you. If Krishna doesn't sanction it, nothing can help you. But if Krishna sanctions it, then what is not possible? If Krishna sanctions it, then A lame man can climb a mountain, and a dumb man can be an orator. So many things are possible in Krishna consciousness. But simply the conditioned soul, being attached to material life, must suffer Mrityu samsara vartmani, this cycle of birth and death over and over again. So the example has to be set by devotees, by following Lord Chaitanya's movement and being exemplary in all our activities. In that way, we can give example to people who are attached. They will be, as Prabhupada described, they will be attracted to devotees because of we're squeaky clean, and we have effulgent faces. We should be, if we're Krishna conscious. If we're not in the modes of material nature, then we should have luster on our faces. We should be minimally happy, joyful in the mode of goodness. The mode of goodness is the stepping stone to the transcendental platform. Mode of goodness means duty. I must, out of duty, not out of love, but out of duty, I must do my prescribed work. That is the mode of goodness. And then on the transcendental platform, of course, it gradually develops into spontaneous love, and at that level there is no duty. But still, the self-realized soul, as we heard, has no reason to perform duty or no reason not to perform duty. But he does so just to set the example, just like Lord Krishna set the example of how to lead a proper life, married life, under rules and regulations, took so many wives, and under all circumstances he followed the Vedic injunctions, just to set the example for people in general. So we want to set a good example. We should be knowledgeable. We should be able to answer questions. Our inability to defeat materialists will not reflect very well upon us if we're not able to defeat materialistic people, defeat their arguments, and help kill their false egos. If we are, for instance, don't set the example bodily attachments, if we eat too much, obviously it doesn't give us much credibility. If we're actually preaching bodily necessities to nil, and yet still we're indulging ourselves in so much eating. Every example, we should set an example like that, and also in our relationships. There's no free mixing in spiritual life between boys and girls. Prabhupada said that the extent of mixing is please, or do you know it? The extent, please pass the salt. That's the extent of our mixing in spiritual life. So we develop our detachment, and what is the quickest way to develop our attachments and set that good example is to follow all those things that are prescribed as being favorable for devotional service, and neglect all those things that are unfavorable. In that way, we can be engaged in beneficial activities for the pleasure of Krishna. And it will not be very difficult to give up our attachments under those conditions. Not that any of us here had that challenge. We probably have not had to break our family attachments or attachment to country, but these things automatically happen in devotional life. But if they don't happen, if they happen to a materialistic person, quite often breaking those attachments is very painful, especially family attachments. It's so painful that people never recover from them. The whole life will be disturbed. Simply, if you become an exile from your own country, their lives are ruined. But In devotional life, our attachments simply disappear. They should disappear if we're actually following all the principles, rules and regulations of spiritual life. We should become free of attachment. We have to become free. Rajadesha vimuktais vishani indrijais chiran. We have to become free from attachment and aversion and control the senses in order to get the mercy of Krishna. It's necessary that we endeavor to do those things so that Krishna will bestow his mercy. And when he bestows his mercy, then we can, as devotees, do things that we would normally not want to do, and those things, and the opposite. The things we want to do, we can refrain from doing, simply because of receiving the Lord's mercy, of being free from attachment and aversion to material things. Then we have freedom to act. And this is a platform of happiness, like the example of Pingala in the 11th canto. Pingala was a prostitute, and she was one night very anxious to have clients to enjoy and to earn some money. Very desperate to do that. So one night, all night long she was standing in the doorway assessing people as they came, men as they came along the street, thinking this one might have some money, or this would be a good or that. And she had no clients the whole night. And she went out into the street, still no. At the end of the night, what happened? A spirit of renunciation entered her heart, because she thought it was due to unknown devotional service that she must have been performed. That spirit of renunciation entered her heart, and she gave up that desire. She sat on her bed, and her heart became filled with happiness, because that intense longing, Krishna just took it away. And then she vowed not to do anything like that again, and just to be a proper devotee. So sometimes we have to run around trying to satisfy the senses, right? Late in the day you might feel some hunger. And you run here and there, everywhere, trying to find something to eat, isn't it? But when we're engaged in that, when we don't have much control over our senses, it's very hard to develop our Krishna consciousness. So the idea is that we develop control by engaging all our senses in Krishna's service, and in moderation satisfy the bodily demands. In moderation. This way we'll always be able to set an example. People will just come, and just by seeing us they will be attracted. This has always been the way we've attracted devotees in the past, by seeing our activities, to seeing how much we work for Krishna, to seeing how much spirit of renunciation we're developing within our hearts. Hare Krishna. Does anybody have any questions, please? I'm sorry, I didn't understand that question.
I said Prahlad Maharaj was having attachment to Vishnu.
Yes, he was attached to Krishna, yes.
And whatever his teacher was teaching,
yes,
he could not understand what they were teaching.
No, he understood what they were teaching, but he already had he already had enough realization to know it was illusion, because he actually got knowledge within the womb from Narada Muni. When Hiranyakashipu went off to do his austerities, all the rogues flourished. Or actually, all the demons they scattered in all directions, because the demigods then took over control. And Indra was going to take Hiranyakashipu's wife to the heavenly planets, because Prahlad was in the womb, and they thought he was going to be a demon. So Narada Muni interrupted him. He said, "No, I'll take her and keep her in my ashram." So he took Kritajuti, his wife, to his ashram, and it was there that Prahlad heard the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. So he was already self-realized. So he knew that everything he was being taught by Sandra and Amaka was nonsense, was material nonsense.
But still, when our parents sent us to the school for learning, so we learn what we are taught in the school. And what we have done in the womb of the mother, we do not know. So how this remembrance was with Prahlad Maharaj?
How is what possible?
Remembrance. Prahlad Maharaj was having that remembrance in the womb of his mother. He had this.
Yes. Prabhupada describes that. It's inconceivable how that happened. It's inconceivable how that happened. Sometimes the conditioned soul within the womb is fortunate enough, when he develops full consciousness in later stage, that he realizes the waste of the sinfulness of previous 100 lives. One is fortunate. But how he imbibed that, he was listening intently within the womb. It's described. How he did that is inconceivable to understand.
We understand the condition of a living entity is very miserable. So how when the miserable in the womb, how that person can one should be hearing what is going on?
Yes. Well, he was enlightened. What more can you say? I mean, the condition within the womb is inconceivably painful. The child within the womb is constantly being losing consciousness for various reasons, from the pungent food the mother eats, or being bitten by worms and things. The situation within the womb is a horror story. And then, of course, even if he regains his memory, birth is so painful, unconsciousness of birth is so painful that everything is forgotten. But in the case of Prahlad Maharaj, he had Krishna's protection. What more can you say? Yes.
Krishna is protecting everyone. Everyone in the womb is protecting. Each and every condition.
Yes. Everybody's protected by Krishna, but not personally. Devotees are personally protected by Krishna. The conditioned soul is protected in as much as is allowed to live out his karma. That is all. And destiny cannot be changed. Only Krishna can change destiny.
That's a nice point. Just a thought on this is that when we're dealing with Shabda Brahma, transcendental sound vibration, there's no material impediments.
That's a good point. That is the point. I should have mentioned that. That's an answer to that last question. There is no material impediment. That is a good example of that.
Whereas with the material, your ABCs or whatever, geometry, that the material vibration has to have certain material conditions, but the transcendental sound vibration doesn't require that.
Well, material or spiritual, there's no meaning without sound vibration. No meaning. There's no meaning to anything. Meaning comes on sound. tanmatra. There's no meaning to anything without sound, materially or spiritually. But the material meaning is, of course, illusory.
What I was saying was, in order to learn, let's say, geometry, you need a certain body material arrangement to learn that. You can't teach geometry to a baby.
No.
But you can teach transcendental vibration anywhere and everywhere, because it doesn't require a material facility.
Yes, that's right.
That's all it's trying to say.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe there was in the beginning about the happiness when he was speaking. He said devotee doesn't want any happiness.
Is what?
Devotee doesn't want any happiness.
No. Not looking for happiness.
Not looking for happiness. And then we quote this verse of Shastra.
Yes.
But devotees are looking for happiness for Krishna's happiness.
Yes, for Krishna's happiness, not their personal happiness. No. It's to be tolerated. Happiness and distress should be tolerated. And transit.
They are looking for Krishna's happiness. They are looking for Krishna's happiness.
Yes. Happiness is the basis of existence, basically. Anandamaya Vyasat. Krishna is the source of all happiness. But you have to know how to get happy. That's it. We don't get happy. In fact, it's described that the moment the living and conditioned soul tries for happiness, then he gets distress. It's viparyasam, amogam vindate phalam. Unfailingly, he gets that opposite result. Unfailingly. As soon as he tries for happiness, he experiences misery.
So if he wants to become happy without Krishna, as soon as he thinks that he can become happy without Krishna, then
Misery. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Hare Krishna. Jai, all glory to Srila Prabhupada.